So let's do a quick tutorial of how to create your own teacher tracker sheet using Google Forms. So we start by going to Google Forms itself, making sure we're logging in there. And I'm logged in right there. You can see my little icon. So now I'm going to go to start a new form. All right, and we can call this, and then here in this description, I could put in instructions for the student. Please fill out, and then give some other instructions as briefly and succinctly as possible. Now, we go back to those types of questions we want to have the kiddos in our classroom or a trusted colleague answer. So our first question might be something like, where does the teacher tend to face? And in this case, I would suggest something like a multiple choice grid. And the way that I did it was I just put in the different class times that I wanted to track. For example, first 10 minutes. Now, you need to figure out a way of how you're going to track where you're tending to face. You could put descriptions such as like the left side of the room, or you could go ahead and just do it in zones, like zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. And what we'll do is, if you'd really like to be helpful to the students, I would suggest helping them know clearly what we mean by the left side, the center side, the right side. Is that their left as they're looking at you, or the teacher's left? So what I did was I included in my tracker sheet a diagram of the classroom. So you can actually just draw one if you'd like and hold it up to your webcam and take a picture of it, or you can create your own that represents your classroom. So for example, here's mine. And this would be the diagram that my students could use for like zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. So in my questions, I wouldn't even need to put left side. I could just put zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, or put both of them there. Okay, and then I can go through and create some other types of questions as well. So I usually just cheat a little bit and hit duplicate, that button right there. And you might also ask, where does the teacher call on students? And in this case, I might change it to a checkbox grid instead, right? So what would be my options here? Let's go over and we'll edit this question. Okay, we could have different zones of the classroom again. We could call it area 1, area 2, etc., and put in all of our different areas and then change our diagram so maybe it's in smaller chunks or sections. So the idea is to figure out what are the types of things you'd like to track in your classroom to identify and then work towards mitigating your own bias. Whether it's where does the teacher tend to face, we could also look at how many times does the teacher call on each student and use a checkbox grid with each of our students' names and then the number of times that we tend to call on them. We might also be interested in which students' names are used when we call on them. And that could be set up as a checkbox grid as well. But the idea is to make it as user-friendly and as simple to fill out as possible so that you can go and then get the best information from it to make changes that will improve the learning of your students. And now the most exciting part is when we get to go and interpret and analyze the data that we gather and then try and use that data to move beyond our own bias in the classroom. So we might find very quickly that we tend to face one side of the room quite often rather than another side, or that we're calling on the same students over and over again where other students aren't being called on very much at all. Looking closely at data, patterns, and trends allows us to make more informed decisions about how to interact with our students with reduced bias.